Prime Minister, such an act constitutes a war crime, does it not?
You are a very experienced lawyer. Surely that was a war crime.
Hello everyone and welcome back to My Left Eye. You might be aware of a story in the news today that shows one of the latest examples of Israel's complete disregard for international law. An ITV news team interviewed a Palestinian man who was part of a group of people waving white flags as they tried to reach an injured man on the ground. Moments later, he was shot dead by the IDF. The scenes were caught on camera but may be too graphic to show here on YouTube, but the case was put to Rishi Sunak in the House of Commons by Stephen Flynn of the SNP during today's Prime Minister's questions, and also to Labour leader and former Director of Public Prosecutions Kier Starmer on Robert Peston's TV show. Both gave pathetic answers as they tried to dance around the question of whether such actions were a war crime. Let's see what happened.
Last night, as Tory MPs were once again fighting amongst themselves, the public were sat at home watching John Irvine of ITV News report on footage from Gaza of an unarmed Palestinian man walking under a white flag, being shot and killed by the IDF. Prime Minister, such an act constitutes a war crime, does it not?
Mr. Speaker, we've been absolutely consistent that international humanitarian law should be respected and civilians should be protected. I've made that point expressly to Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the Foreign Secretary is in the region this week making exactly the same point.
Stephen.
It was a direct question about that specific incident, and again, he ignores it. Again, he just refers to a statement that tries to dance around the issue. He's going to get pressed again by Stephen Flynn here.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom to rise to that dispatch box and tell the people of these Isles and elsewhere that shooting an unarmed man walking under a white flag is a war crime. Now, in recent weeks, this House has acted with urgency and intent following an ITV drama. The question is, will this House now show the same urgency and intent following this ITV news report and finally back a ceasefire in Gaza?
So he needs to answer the direct question. The Speaker of the House should be pressing Sunak to directly answer the question. Otherwise, what is the point of the House of Commons? What is the point of Prime Minister's question time? If any time a serious question is put to him, they're allowed to just try and dodge it with broad, vague and frankly disrespectful reply.
Mr. Speaker, no one wants to see this conflict go on for a moment longer than necessary, and we do want to see an immediate and sustained humanitarian pause to get more aid in and...
A ceasefire. He said a ceasefire, not a humanitarian pause. No doubt you'll remember the last so-called humanitarian pause where Palestinians were still attacked on convoys, were still attacked in so-called safe zones. These humanitarian pauses do nothing. Aid doesn't get through and people are still being attacked. Stephen Flynn was asking if you will call for a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire.
Crucially, the hostages out, helping create the conditions for a sustainable ceasefire. I set out the conditions for that earlier in the House. The Foreign Secretary is in the region today and will continue to press all our allies and partners to make sure that we can bring about that outcome.
A permanent ceasefire, not just a sustainable one. And you can see from Stephen Flynn's expression there, he's not exactly impressed by Sunak's reaction.
Are you serious?
I also mentioned Kier Starmer, who was on Robert Peston's ITV show. He gave an equally appalling answer when this topic was brought up. Let's see what happened there.
You will be aware of the footage we showed on ITV last night of a Palestinian man holding a white flag being shot and killed by the Israeli military. The Prime Minister today refused to say whether he thought that was a war crime. You are a very experienced lawyer. Surely that was a war crime.
Well, Robert, first I have to say I haven't seen the footage yet. I've been working around the clock, I haven't stopped today.
He described the incident to you. A man walking down the street, waving a white flag, was shot dead. That is what you can see on the clip, which, as I mentioned, is too graphic to show here. It's a very clear-cut case. He may not have seen the clip, but it's been described to him, and by what has been described, it is clearly a war crime, whether you've seen the clip or not.
Yet. I will, of course, see it. I've been sent the link to it, but I haven't seen it yet. But what I would say is this.
I know nothing. What? I know nothing. No. Nothing.
We've been absolutely clear throughout this that, yes, of course, Israel has the right to self-defence, but it's got to be in accordance with international law. And
That's about as clear as mud, Starmer. About as clear as mud. Towing the line that Israel is defending itself is even old news, and the escalation's only been going on in the last 3 months. Israel isn't defending itself, it is occupying another country. That is not defending yourself, that is oppressing and occupying another country. The exact opposite of what you're implying.
they're two sides of the same coin. It's why we've said that the ICC should be in there with jurisdiction with the prosecutor gathering evidence, because there's got to be accountability under international law. What I don't think is wise, and this is, we're always being asked to do this, is for politicians to sit looking at clips on social media or on programmes and forming instant judgments about whether it's a breach of this law or that.
Well, if that's the case, then why were you so quick to do so during the escalation between Russia and the Ukraine?
The reports of possible chemical weapons attacks are deeply disturbing. It's a significant escalation amounting to yet more war crimes.
And there you have it, a complete contradiction, yet again.
That doesn't seem to me wise, but I don't recoil from the fact, or don't resile from the fact, that of course Israel has got to comply with international law, and of course that means the accountability mechanisms need to be there, of which the prosecutor is one, which is why we support that.
Ridiculous, ridiculous, and it really does make you ashamed to see the Prime Minister of the UK and the leader of the opposition of the UK trying to dodge around the issue and, if anything, siding with Israel, trying to keep a ceasefire as far away as possible, whilst daily hundreds of people, mostly women and children, continue to suffer, continue to die under awful circumstances of oppression, occupation and apartheid. What are we to do when we're led by people like this? It's an absolute sham, and these shite hawks really don't represent public opinion. There's been so much demonstration and protest in support of a Gaza ceasefire recently, and I really do hope to see that continue. But that's just one of the latest examples. Thanks a lot for staying with us here on My Left Eye. We'll try and keep you up to date with the latest on the situation in Gaza, but until next time, take care everybody.